The UN theme for this year's International Women's Day is Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality. This theme has been aligned with a priority theme for the ongoing 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, whose theme is Innovation and Technology Change and Education in the Digital Age for Achieving Gender Equality and Empowerment of all women and girls. The observance of International Women's Day recognizes and celebrates women and girls who are championing the advancement of transformative technology and digital education. In her remarks, the Malawi UN Women Country Representative, Lete Chwala, says this day also gives an opportunity to the stakeholders, including governments, to explore the impact of digital gender gap on widening economic and social inequalities.
We are discussing here the issue of science, technology and education to advance gender equality and women's rights. And one of the things we've noted as we've been doing research around this thematic issue is that women are disproportionately underrepresented in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And why is that? It is because we are not socialized to take those subjects. Society brings us up as women to go into the soft sectors or soft areas like education, health. And I think when we were growing up as girls, we always knew that we wanted to be a teacher or you wanted to be a nurse. It's a socialization issue. And boys were always socialized to take the hardcore sciences, the hardcore engineering subjects. So these are some of the issues we are discussing during CSW 67 here in Malawi as CSOs meet, but also which we'll continue to discuss in New York.
She says the UN Women's Gender Snapshot 2022 report indicates women's exclusion from digital world has shaved $1 trillion from the gross domestic product of low and middle-income countries in the last decade. Chwara adds that this loss will grow into $1.5 trillion by 2025 if no any other tangible action is taken.
The key message to African governments is to invest more in education for girls. That's number one. And to ensure that our systems promote accessibility to technology. Because the issue of access is one of the issues that has come up in the work we've been doing as we prepare for CSW. Because it's one thing to have the interest, it's another to have the access. Access to the equipment, access to the data. You know, data revolution is so key to ensure that data is made accessible and affordable to all, and particularly accessible to rural communities. Because again, some of the access is mainly limited to cities. So governments should now look at how do we enhance access, particularly to rural areas where most women and girls are best.
The meeting in Lilongwe Malawi therefore was conducted ahead of the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. Women and men from all African regions were here to discuss their African position paper reflecting the theme. The event also provided a spotlight to consider the importance of protecting rights of women and girls in digital spaces and addressing online and ICT-facilitated gender-based violence.
I think we have the positives and negatives about what we call technology. However, I think we should be weighing more towards the positives, because negatives should be dealt with in a way that if it is criminal, then it should be considered as criminal and it should be dealt with in that manner. So if you talk about Malawi, but also Africa, you will see that many women are quite behind in technology, not because they want it that way. It starts from education, then it goes on to say access to productive resources, access to different resources where women can own a phone or can own their own radio in rural areas, Usually the men will be owning everything, and then at times they even take the radio, they move around with the radio when the family cannot listen to anything. So you see the number of the women and young women and girls that have access to gadgets like phones, mobile phones, is very low. Hence, when we are talking of technology, we should be looking at it in that order. How do they start accessing? How do they become technologically correct when they cannot access? They do not have such a facility. So it is about also encouraging our governments. How do they reduce tariffs on different things, especially the mobile services, so that each one of us, most of us, it cannot be everybody, should have access to such facilities. Then we'll be talking, yes, technology is correct. And secondly, you've also mentioned the issue of how it has also become a tool for abuse. So, for instance, phones have become a tool for abuse. Instead of people using it to advance the agenda of development, they are using it indeed to insert others and also attack others, even steal from others. Because people are using phones to cheat others, to steal money, steal or property, to steal many things, when the phones should have been making life easier for us instead of them using them for stealing.
Febe Kasogo, the Plan Malawi country representative who represented all partners, said time has come for African governments to seriously consider digital spaces safe for women and girls. Kasogo observes that many young girls are not aware of how they can take advantage of digital space and therefore calls upon governments to make deliberate efforts to bring up to speed women and girls on the digital space usage.
Why this meeting? Why is it important? In the month of March, we recognize women. It's the month in which we celebrate the International Women's Day. However, in that month, we also recognize that it's the month of the Commission on the Status of Women that marks progress that we have made across the entire world. So this meeting is important because it gives us a space where we can reflect on those things that matter to us. And this year, we are mainly focusing on the digital aspect of whatever we do, whether it's development, whether it's journalism. How does the digital divide affect us in simple terms? So it's important from where I stand because it helps us shine a flashlight on a number of issues affecting young people. And I want to pick just maybe two of them. One is just that lack of digital literacy. I'll give simple examples. Email addresses. Sometimes I receive emails. The content of the email is in the subject of the email. So it's absolutely important that our young people are exposed to digital literacy. And so that is why this meeting is very important. Two, I want to speak about online safety. As we relate, as young people particularly, how can we relate in a safe way? How can we ensure that within our education systems, the digital aspects form a center stage? That becomes very important because it shapes our future, prepares us for the workplace, prepares us to be leaders of tomorrow, and so that makes this a very, very important meeting.
In her remarks, the African Women's Development and Communication Network, FEMNET, Executive Director Memory Zonde Kachambwa, says the common position which would emanate from this preparatory meeting will provide an overview of some of the main issues pertaining to innovation and technological change and education in the digital age for achieving equality and empowerment of all women and girls.
The significance of us coming together is how do we engage in this process before CSW, during CSW, even after CSW. So there are many points of us engaging in this process. The theme itself, the process itself, and also beyond. What does it really mean? And it's so significant, for Africa to be talking about technology, about innovation. We need to document our own narratives. We also need to also push back on some of the big tech, some of the biases, everything that happens in this industry. We on the continent are at the receiving end of anything technology, anything innovation, yet we have the resources, most of the resources which are needed for solar, batteries, for this, what we're calling within the climate space, just transition. It's on the continent. How are we also linking all these processes? So we're talking innovation is beyond just digital access. We are linking it to issues around climate. We're linking it to the conversations around extractives. How is it that we have a continent which has so much potential? We are generating electricity, wind power, yet the people who actually want access, we don't have the coverage. We don't have coverage, digital coverage enough. The statistics really say, and there's such a gloomy number. So there's so many issues. So what we're trying to do is to bring people together. We have our position, we understand the positions, we push the people who will be in New York to ensure that our position is heard and also it actually comes out of the outcome document.
She appeals to the African governments not to allow the shrinking of space for civil societies to the Commission of Status on Women Summit, because it is the only forum where women and girls' issues are articulated and compiled to the high-level stakeholders meeting of the UN General Assembly.
The challenge is that you find, even for government delegations, the capital, sometimes you go, if they don't go to New York physically, then sometimes what the permanent mission may present might not be in line with the reality which is happening on the ground. So we just don't want to be in New York for the sake of it, but because we know for us to contend in those negotiations, there's a lot at stake. There are some member states which are really regressing. There's an anti-gender movement which is really pushing back to the language that we agreed on in Beijing. You'll find some member states will be like, remove that. We can't have you talk about women in all their diversity. Remove that. We can't talk about women's rights. Remove that. So there's a lot of contestation. So this is why it's important to have very strong delegations which are going there, which are working together with civil society for us to maintain the progressive language. Because when global standards and norm setting is happening, it's important to be very, very strong. They have to be above, they have to be more robust than what we have nationally, because we are setting a normative framework, we are setting a global standard. And that's what we can now use to advance at the local level.
And speaking during the official opening of CSW 67 Africa, the Malawi Minister of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare, Jean Sendeza, said bringing women and other marginalized people into technology has resulted into creating more creative solutions and has enhanced the implementation of innovations to promote gender equality.
We were discussing the theme that will take center stage in New York on issues to do with the technology, with the aim of our girls and women, to in this era of digitalization. So that is why we were meeting, and discussions were given and challenges were being presented, especially on the issues on how girls and women to access gadgets so that they can use, and again, when they have those gadgets, how can they use those gadgets so that the technological inclusion that we are fighting for is taken on board. this is why we're having this meeting. So this is what we will take to New York and discuss that African women have these challenges, and we will see how solutions will be found in New York.
Dr. Mag Madimbo, working in the academia, observes that this is not the only academic process, but very significant in advocacy in as far as changes of policies is concerned.
Yes, women are involved in digital innovations, but not at much, especially when we look at where the majority of women are in Africa, in the rural areas. Lack of access to gadgets, even maybe before we go to gadgets, lack of availability of, for example, electricity. You can't even start talking about the gadgets if these women, they don't have access to technology. So it is important that we talk together with one voice, and that these resources should be available for women. Not just women in the rural areas, but women all over, including the rural communities.
Sona Dabo is women and girls' rights activist from Gambia. She tells me that digital space has for a long time been occupied by men and boys, leaving out girls and the women.
Where I come from, it's very difficult for you to talk about cyberbullying because we don't even know the basic issues that are involved in digitalization. When I say we, I'm not saying the entire country, but I'm saying a good number of the young girls of my country are not really aware about what digitalization entails for us. Maybe we just think it's about the small statuses we do, the small TikToks we watch, and that's it. So when you look at cyberbullying, I think it's a major thing, but because we don't understand what it is, we will really find it difficult to talk about it at such spaces. So again, one of the takeaways for me is to be able to understand the digital world we are in better and understand the basic things that we need first, and then also understand how we can cope cyberbullying in our context. So I think more or less it's going to be understanding the basics, then we can talk about cyberbullying.
Mama Clara Makungwa is a long-serving women rights activist who has also been a minister of gender in Malawi government. She says gatherings such as these are the ones that are crucial because they form a major basis of a position taken by grouping, and in this case, Africa region.
A group of women came together and decided that we must have this platform where we can talk about the Africa position. We are kind of also preparing our colleagues that are going. We know the government through the Minister of Gender and her delegation and the civil society are going to attend that very important summit in New York from next week. And so this is kind of assisting them go there with a common position, an African position, and what are the thriving issues that they need to look at and discuss at that forum.
After intense discussions and deliberations, the Commission on Status of Women Africa Vision made a very strong recommendation to the African position. The chairperson of the organizing committee, who is also the executive director of the Malawi Human Rights Resource Center, Emma Kalia, said she is happy that women and girls with the voices of men have spoken clearly. Kalia pointed out that women and girls have agreed to talk to their government, not to help the United Nations or the host country shrink their space.
We've seen, yes. It started, I think, around 2017 when we started hearing that getting a visa to the US has become tall order, because it is suspected that many people that would travel there, they would want to stay there. They don't want to come back. I've said it many times, I don't desire to stay in the US. I desire really to come back. I just go there to do work and come back. Those who desire to go and stay in the US, I think they should be followed up by proper systems. Even before they get the visas, you can already tell this person Why are they going there? So women really have been affected. It's not only here, it's across the world. In 2019, I remember there were so many women who had tickets hoping, because they were so used. You buy your ticket in good time so that it's not expensive, then you apply for a visa later. But many people ended up having tickets they couldn't travel because they were denied visas. And this trend has continued. Hence, when we are meeting in Africa, others feel we should just meet in Africa here. Why should we even be traveling to US when it is so difficult to get a visa to go to the US? So that's why many of them are talking about shrinking. Secondly, this shrinking space comes in the context where in the old days, civil society used to participate fully in the government deliberations. They would let you sit there and listen. But nowadays, it is only the side events where you can enter. But you can also enter when you have a proper pass. But in the old days, we could enter there, sit there, they would be talking, they would be negotiating. Even if you are not talking, but you would hear. Nowadays, you crossed out. You are not supposed to enter those places because the view is this is pure government business. Hence, they cannot let you in. So I think that's where the issue of shrinking space comes in.
Femnet Executive Director Memoleka Chambwa also observed that the meeting has provided a very powerful network of women and network working to uplift and amplify their voices in the digital space. Being the second edition of Commission of Status on Women Africa version convened here in Malawi from Kenya, there was a symbolic presentation to their chairmanship of Malawi and strengthening the intergenerational initiative in which young ladies are taking the mantle from veteran women to advance the women movement.
We will not be handing over from this side and we'll be saying, Malawi, young women, all of you, to be able to carry on the mantle and continue to disrupt and thinking about this alternative organizing for CSW and any other global advocacy space. Okay? So remember, I invited you here.